Nerd morning, everyone. My name is Jeremy. I am with my brother Joseph, and we
Hi
are going
guys.
to talk about the question: is Alfred responsible for creating Batman? Now, we've had some really interesting ideas here, and I think this is a very worthwhile question.
Alfred
Um,
has been around Batman like he's he's with Batman.
yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it's just an interesting
There's
quandary here.
Yeah, there's
Uh,
so much history here. Initially, like if we go way back to the very, very beginning, Batman number 16 is when Alfred made his first appearance. That was in April of 1943. And so Batman had existed, been around,
yep,
Robin's been there. So Alfred, in
yeah.
that respects, is a little bit older. Yeah,
Detective
right,
Comics had
where
been
he,
running for a while with him. Yeah, yep,
yeah. And so Alfred didn't start out at the very beginning, but has grown to be a pivotal key aspect of Bruce Wayne's upbringing and all of that. Which I mean, there is argument there because he's the key parental influencer for this
right,
troubled child throughout
yeah.
all of these formidable years. Um, Alfred's first appearance was actually an overweight kind of portly gentleman who's completely clean shaven. And now we
Uh-huh.
kind of have him that stringy, thinner
Right. Thinner
man with
mustache.
right.
Yep.
And actually, that's because of the Batman serial series that was in 1943, same year as he came out initially in the comics. And he was portrayed by an actor, William Austin, who sported a thin mustache and had a more trimmed physical appearance. And that is now the Alfred that we think of. So there's
Interesting.
definitely a little bit of
Yeah,
an evolution that we've had of Alfred. I mean, when you look at characters like this, everything is true. Like to this
right.
question, ultimately, did Alfred is Alfred responsible for creating Batman? Yes, certain universes always true, right?
Right.
Certain universes not at all, and that's the complexity of a long history character that we have in
Yes.
these Western comics.
Yes.
So that with that addendum, let's dive into how this could be true and how we've seen it in different takes inside of Alfred, inside of the Batman mythos.
Yep. Uh, if we jump into kind of the classic Alfred,
Hmm.
reaching all through the 60s through even the 90s,
Hmm.
uh, the Batman animated series,
Right.
especially for that one, I'm gonna say he's less responsible
Hmm.
um, for creating Batman. Uh, but he's definitely more of the enabler. He doesn't ever
Yes.
say,
Yes.
"Child, you need to go see these psychiatrists. You need help." He doesn't ever do that.
Right. Well, I mean,
So
maybe psychiatric help inside of Gotham isn't very wise. I mean, I'm
Arkham
all
Asylum.
for mental health and working towards problems. Like that's like a big, big positive thing, but maybe not in Arkham,
No, that is a
you
good
know?
point. Maybe he'd heard things and was being a good parental figure. And
Right. And that's and
uh,
but yeah, ultimately, whether it's his snarky comments or things like that, he has enabled Batman to be Batman. It's like Bruce had grown up with him, had been taught and learned a lot of things from him. Obviously, in most of the versions of Batman, he goes off and learns from Descartes and other type of individuals,
mhm,
develops to become Batman off on a quest, which usually takes multiple years, and then he comes back and tries to like really be Batman, and that's a time period that is pretty consistent on any of the universes of Batman.
Yep.
and that is separate from when he's with Alfred.
True. But most of those are when he's older. So,
Yes.
um,
Yes.
a superb example of that, and also slightly removed from the classic Alfred, the
Mhm.
Dark Knight series.
Yeah.
Alfred, portrayed by Michael Caine, superb. One of my absolute favorite
Yeah.
versions of
He
Alfred.
does an amazing performance.
So great. Uh, it does discuss it a little bit. He brings
Mhm.
up the only thing that's not making me call the men in the white coats, as he
Uh-huh.
puts it, is it wasn't about thrill seeking. I believe the line is in the movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but there, he's definitely is not saying no, especially
Mhm.
at the beginning.
Yeah.
So that version, uh, it would be very arguable that he wouldn't have been able to say no to that version of Bruce Wayne.
Yeah.
So
I mean, on top of that, though, this is not someone he's like, I've got this idea for you. You should go and become a superhero. You know,
that's true.
he doesn't necessarily like know that he exists or doesn't exist. He takes everything with stride, and pretty much Bruce leaves. Okay, he's
Yep.
disappeared for a while. I'll just keep the
Just
manor
taking
clean.
care of
He shows
business.
up. All
Uh-huh.
right, cool. It's back to usual, right? Like he
Right.
takes everything by stride. And like I don't know if that's because of his background or other things that he's had. In the comics, I mean, even in like the pre-crisis era inside of DC Comics, that was a period between 1938 and 1984. Like he has this background as a retired actor, but also as an intelligence agent. Like he has this background of having created personas as an actor and
Yep.
being essentially like potentially a super spy. And
Yeah.
that's something not fully explored right at that moment, but it's something that exists in his history. And there's oftentimes this relationship that he has with the father, and thus takes responsibility for Bruce and
Yeah.
becomes a caretaker for him. And that's generally explored through most of the mythos nowadays.
It is, especially so in the Earth One series and the Gotham television show.
Yeah.
That I
Yeah.
really like the opening scenes for the first issue of Earth One.
Mhm.
Alfred comes in. He apparently knows Thomas Wayne from something in the past. There's
Yeah.
that brothers in arms kind of feel to it, and
Hmm.
he's told, "I want you to look after my son. Things are getting dangerous here. I
Yeah.
need you to take care of him." And that's
Which
a little
he
different
is.
from the classic Alfreds.
Yeah, instead of being more of a butler, he is more of a bodyguard.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how he's brought in. There's a couple of other Elseworld style stories that link that same type of background and history for him.
Mm-hmm.
And um, like these types of things really make it so him being a battler is more towards the forefront, and
Yep.
thus Bruce choosing to battle, obviously in a little bit of a different light,
Yep. But it
though
makes more
makes
sense.
more sense.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
With Gotham, one of the background things that they have going on is like him learning how to box and Alfred teaching
Alfred's
young
teaching
Bruce how to
him.
do that.
That's a great
And so
scene.
like,
Yeah.
right, it's and like even like where he goes in and like gives him a good punch, and
He
he's like,
lays
you
him
know,
down.
like yeah, and he's like, you gotta like what you gonna
This
do kind of
is
a thing.
right.
And like
This is it. You
this
asked
is a
to learn how to
different
fight. Yeah.
This is a different Alfred than like the Batman animated series where he's like, Alfred, draw me a bath, and he draws a drawing of a bath and he goes, here you go. Like,
Here you go.
this is a
Enjoy.
different type of thing, right?
Yeah,
Um,
totally. To-
and though it is pretty valid. In the
mhm.
comics main timeline series, the New 52 run with written by Scott Snyder, he creates this expansion in the main universe where Alfred is a super spy and has a niece who's also a super spy and kind of joins in and like does things as well. But like I love how in that one they call him Penny One
Uh-huh.
and
Give him a
over the
code
mics because like
name,
right because always he's
right?
like punching like Bane or something, Alfred, and I'm just like, there. How many
How
Alfreds
many?
are there?
Right?
Like,
Even if
I mean,
there are a
probably a lot, but
thousand, even if there are
like
10,000,
this narrows down. If people really
right?
wanted to know, I mean, like when he turns to like from like Commissioner Gordon, he's like, Alfred, like Gordon knows Bruce Wayne,
Yeah,
thus knows Alfred personally. And so what
right.
is he going to think? I'm just like, I really, really, really appreciate that. That's totally a side note thing, but it's like, it's big for me. It's really
it
big.
it is.
Um,
So
but
so
in that one, they really delve into him as a spy and his background and even have some backstories of him having that skills and that background, which can influence how Bruce is made as
definitely.
Batman.
So in those versions of Alfred, in those storylines or universe setting, however you want to lay it out, I'm going to say
Yeah,
yes. Those ones are responsible for Batman becoming Batman.
right.
At
Yeah.
least in the mentor, in more of a mentor style rather than just the
Mhm.
enabler style, right? Uh,
Yeah. Well, like in Earth One, like you'd mentioned, like he pretty much is like, here's how you fight. Here's how you do these things. Oh, you want to go run around? Well, let's like help you get better equipment, other things. Like he
yep.
is I would say a driving force um,
Yes.
for this. And I mean, even though we talked about in the points with like the Batman Dark Knight trilogy, Alfred goes and says, "Well, here's here's some supply
Right.
ideas. Here's
Here's how we
somebody you
can
should
help
talk
this
to."
happen. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, all
Uh,
of those are elements of maybe not necessarily having the idea, but
right. Maybe
he
not
helps make
creating.
Batman possible.
Uh,
Yeah,
and
and
no matter how we say it, Batman would not be the Batman we know without Alfred.
yes, and that
Uh,
is something that is currently explored right now in comics.
right? Since
For the
Alfred has
past
actually passed away.
right for the past year, Alfred
Sadness.
has been gone, which I'm like, when is the retcon so we get Alfred back? I
Right?
mean, I just
We
feel like
miss him.
honestly, they're doing some really, really good stuff, and things like in the Robin series, Alfred's kind of like the shoulder angel for him, where he thinks and he almost like hears the voice of Alfred saying, "Don't do that," or "You should go and make friends with those people," or something. Like he is this like guiding force for these people, and it's post-mortem now, but that's still a thing. But we also see the collapse of Batman in that series in some ways,
Uh-huh.
where he is just like the Batcave is a mess and he's just not functioning, not sleeping and struggling eating and all these types of things. I mean, one, because he's depressed, and that's fair. He's got
Sure.
a lot of things that he was thrown at, even beyond Alfred, but
Yep.
also Alfred doing all of those type of tasks that he never had to worry about because he's this rich
He was
superhero guy,
just
right?
Alfred
Um,
was always there. Yeah.
yeah, and
Uh,
that made it so he could be that. Also, in many iterations of comics, Alfred has technical skills, not just super spy stuff and
Right.
not just combat skills,
Yeah.
but he helps build the
Building
weaponry
the
and fine
machines,
tune the
working on
suits.
the Batmobile. Yep.
Uh-huh. And so
Yeah.
like a lot of what makes Batman Batman is his tech. Like
Yes.
I
Very much
love
so.
his energy, his grit, and all of those things that are very human, but also
Yep.
his big Batmobile car is a big part of what makes Batman Batman.
Yep. It
And
is.
if we then say the technical skills that were involved in creating that, we lie towards Alfred, all of a sudden Alfred
Yep.
has a bigger component of being Batman.
Yeah. Certainly in the beginning, before we had um oh, his name just escaped me, the leader of Wayne Enterprises who helps with the
Fox?
tech stuff. Yes, Lucius Fox. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lucius Fox jumps in a little later, kind of helping with stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
and as we see in Joker War, that's a problem sometimes.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, Alfred was always involved, even when Lucius Fox had some of the technical stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Alfred was definitely an integral part of it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very, very interesting. I
yeah,
am fascinated by this question. Is Alfred responsible for making Batman? Guys, everybody in the comments, let us know what you think.
right.
Are there particular iterations of Alfred that you go, yeah, totally, or other versions where you go, no, not at all? Let us know what you think.
Let
Put
us
those in the
know.
comments. Love to hear those thoughts. Also, if you haven't already, please give this video a thumbs up. That helps the channel so much. And also, if you haven't already, consider subscribing because we'd love to have you join in on additional videos like this. Um, Also, you can find more Nerd Morning content on places like Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, and more at Nerd Morning. So definitely check those things out as well. Thank you, Joseph, so much for joining in. Awesome
It was
thoughts
fun. It was
today.
good
Um,
conversation.
good,
Yeah.
good. Um, and we'll talk with everyone later. Thank you so much for joining.
Bye.
Bye.